What's happening, my friend?
Quite a bit. It's been a very interesting week, and I've got to be honest, my mindset and motivation has been truly tested this week. So the UK announced 2 weeks ago a bounce back loan for small businesses, and the terms are fantastic. It's up to 50,000. It's no repayments for for a year, no interest, etc. And you apply via the bank, and instead of going through the normal kind of things that the other loans went through, it was 7 questions and you're approved. And every bank, apart from mine, managed to implement it properly. And mine crashed on the first day. You end up in 6-hour call queues, and then you get through to people and they say, just be patient. And you're like, you don't seem to understand. I can't pay staff with the phrase, just be patient. And you guys have had weeks to do this. And I found it to be something that, to be honest, just chewed up every minute of your day, whether you're working on it on that minute or not. It was so prevalent in your mind. And if anyone had said, come back in 4 days, it would be fine. You'd be like, okay, fair enough, I can put that to one side. But they're like, no, try again in an hour. Try again in an hour. And bless you. And this thing just went round and round, and it's still going on today. And it's ridiculously annoying. So that has been a challenge for me, I've got to be honest. And I wanted to ask you a question, because it's the first time, and I believe in kind of total vulnerability for everyone that's watching this. It's the first time I've been required to do live calls and provide leadership and give people, advice. And this week's was on discipline. When I'll be totally honest with you, there's been moments when I'm like, okay, I need to go live in 5 minutes. I'm like, do I really have to do this? Now you've been kind of in the public eye a lot more than I have, and for a lot longer than I have. And there must be moments when you're like, okay, it's game time, but I've got all this going on in either my personal life or my professional life. And I need to find a way to park that so I can still give value to people in this forum. It must have happened. I was just wondering, well, maybe it hasn't, but for me, I was kind of numerically it must have happened. What would your advice to people be in that step up moment? How do you get rid of everything else?
Sure. Peter, I could write a book on the moments that's happened. Going all the way back to high school, every sport I've ever played, I felt like quitting. I would have quit the Columbia baseball team as a sophomore if it wasn't for somebody with a learning disability, Paul, my across the street neighbor, that was remarkable in how he helped me see my self-focus and my self-pity. It happened right before the Unblinded event with somebody I loved and cared about and truly had mistakenly thought was my friend. It happened in my second marriage, right at some of the epicenter moments of the most important things I ever did, having some of the most painful, shocking moments of my entire life occur. So my friend, I don't know exactly the feeling anybody is feeling ever. We never know somebody's pain because we never know exactly what it means to them. And we never know exactly how they're processing and filtering information. But I have countless times been there. I've been there right before the Unblinded event in other ways with the team. I've been let down and disappointed, or I've trained people to disappoint me. So I'll take responsibility. I've trained people to not be accountable. So in short, I have felt all of those ways regularly, repeated, and continuously over and over again in personal, professional, recreational dynamics. So I don't think there's a situation where I haven't felt like, why am I doing this? And absolutely being at my last, like hanging by a spider web that was beginning, or one strand of a spider web that was beginning to give way. So that's a lengthy pre-frame to say, yes. You're like, well, if you've maybe never been there, I have been to that edge 1,000 times. 1,000. So where could I take you from there, my friend? So I'm connecting, and I'm really sorry to hear your frustration, your pain, your upset. We had some substantial disappointments in round one of the loan process, and I was really, really devastated. And I was frustrated at myself and people and how we handled certain things. You know, but yes. So how can I support with all
So
that?
how do you then, so I saw you on stage 10, 11, 12. And for anyone that doesn't want to refer to it, about kind of the public launch of Unblinded might not be the right word for it, but the kind of the event where it kind of crystallized, and there was no sense of that from me, that you were in any kind of position like that. But I know that, but to me, it's like it's this battle of integrity. I want to get on the camera and go, life sucks.
Yeah.
Now, and that's not fair, right? Because if people have entrusted me with even 0.01% of leadership in any one area of their life,
Yeah.
it's not fair to take my pressure and my stress and transfer it to them.
Yeah.
This stage comes with a responsibility that I, quite frankly, hadn't really appreciated when I started this, to the degree I'm receiving 2 or 3 phone calls or messages a day from people saying, wow, that really helped. Thank you for that. Thank you for this. I'm like, whoa, that's real. I wasn't expecting that. Right. And that might sound silly to people. It's like, well, no, you don't really, until people pick up the phone and say I was in a really low place and listening to you for 5 minutes really helped. Like, I don't want to swear, but it's like, shit, okay, right. Well, I better up my game then, because I've got to do better now. If people are listening, engaging, I've got to do better. So how do you represent with integrity when at that very moment you just don't feel that way? You feel entirely the opposite.
Okay, that's the right question. Because when I hit that stage, I was 100% present, and nothing else in the world existed except delivering for those people. And the greatest model I have, we went through them, the Muhammad Ali's, the Bruce Springsteens. We didn't talk as much about Bruce, but a bit, and Tony Robbins. And I don't look at any one of them as a hero, right? And I look at them as heroes, meaning I model their behavior and conduct. So I don't look at Tony Robbins as a person who walks into an arena of 15,000 people or 5,000 or wherever, and go, wow, how did all this happen? I know how it happened. I know exactly how it happened because I listened to him, and I've been listening to him for a really long time. And I have a formula that even explains it for me in the most optimal ways. And so my answer would be, because he gets himself through physiology, so does Springsteen, so does Muhammad Ali, so does Conor McGregor, right? So did the American Ice team. Physiologically, I will do something to get myself ready. When I was at trial, in some of these big cases, working 21 hours a day, I would wake up at 2:00 in the morning. We go to bed at 11 and get up at 2, or 11:30, get up at 2:30. It was 3 hours of sleep. That's what we allotted ourselves. And that's real. And it was painful physically. It was scary. Like everything was on the line for us, for our client, for everything I believed in. And I wake up and my body would scream, you can't. I was in the hospital the day before the trial started. I had food poisoning. My people involved in it thought I was poisoned. I don't believe it. They still do. I don't. I think I had food poisoning. They think I was actually intentionally poisoned. So physically I was a wreck. I was physically getting sick for a day. I thought I was having a heart attack. I had IV in me in the hospital. All these are like dramatic, insane things that sound like they're made up for the purposes of drama in a movie. And coming from that place, I know I don't have a choice but to be physiologically ready, because Tony Robbins taught me that. Before he taught me it, Coach Stan Woods and Emerson Wrestling taught me it. So why we ran out to Born to Be Wild with the lights out, hoods up, cheering, got in, what Tony Robbins called in state in the locker room athletically. I lived it. Long before I met Tony Robbins, he gave me the words for it, right? So I don't do anything unless I physically have endorphins in my system. So whenever I don't feel well, I've conditioned myself, right? Which happens a lot. And by the way, it's interesting. So going this deep, I believe in forces of light and darkness. I believe in God. I believe in the devil. Right. And so I have right now, I had torn my pec about 2 years ago, and part of the surgical piece came out about 6 months ago, which I haven't gotten fixed yet. I had tendonitis in my elbow for the first time, and push-ups have been an extraordinary part of my physiological maintenance of my head, plus running and benching, lifting, all those things. And so even when I couldn't bench press, I could do push-ups. So I have all these things that are wrong now, and this is how committed I am, Peter, to it. So now what I've innovated to do, since my elbow hurts, I have the pec issue, I've innovated to, I'll just do isometric push-up position. And every day I do more until like I literally have endorphins being released from my body. So right now, just being very practically real, like I today did 4 minutes in isometric push-up position, right? And it's a lot. Maybe it's not a lot for most people. For me, it's a lot. And I get a full endorphin release. I start like sweating, and I'll do crunches and I'll do bicycles ab-wise, but if I only have a few minutes. And I'll do that so that like 7 minutes, I would get a full endorphin release. I'm not doing it from my training for the day, right? But I get it from my endorphin release. Or if I have less than that, then I will do rapid fire jumping jacks. And I'll make sure I do jumping jacks until I have an endorphin release. And they'll get my body, I'll get in state, and I'll make, you know, like Tony Robbins say, make your move. I don't, it's maybe slightly distinct from that, but I'll be bouncing around the room, you know, like a fighter coming out for a fight, but not in like a happy state, like in a ready Zeus-like state, because it's access to Zeus energy is the energy of breakthrough and making things happen. I'll get in a different state when it's time to be creative. But when it comes time to, like, if I'm down, my antidote to down is endorphin, eating Zeus-like energy, right? And I will play music. I'll listen to like F You, Don't Do What You Tell Me, you know, Killing the Name by Rage Against the Machine.
Rage Against the Machine, yeah.
Thunderstruck. So I will do something musically and physiologically. And Peter, I mean every day. I mean multiple times per day. Period. Every day, every time I feel in the absence of a peak place, between every call I do, I will do something to get myself there.
Well, I am a dumbass. I am a total dumbass, right? Before every single important phone call, I've got a playlist. And I've got Spotify playlists for each emotion I want to get from myself. Mm-hmm. I've got one in the morning. I've got one before bed. I've got one before important phone calls, which normally revolves around Eminem, Lose Yourself.
Yeah.
I've got all of those. And I never thought, this is ridiculously stupid, I never thought to treat the video as an event. I never put two and two together, and it's so obvious. This is a stage. And if you said to me, you're going to get on a stage in front of 1,000 people, what would you do? I'd be out the back with a Rocky montage, going, come on, bring it. This is it. This is your time. This is your moment. You know what you got to do. You have to bring everything and leave it all there. And when I've been coming on here, I haven't done that at all. That's crazy stupid.
I've never done this on video or whatever, but it'll look something like this, right? And I will literally do. Right, so I'll do jumping, and I'll do that for, let's say, about a minute and a half until something happens. I'll be listening to music, and I'll be like bouncing around the room like this. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Right, and that's what I look like. You'd ask Fernando, Nicole, anybody, and I'll be getting myself in a state, right? And then I'll smile, so I'll bring back like some fun, happy energy, but I'm ready to go. And I'll do this. This is like my, hit my stomach, every part of me, engage my body.
Wow.
So that is what I do. And I do that 4 or 5.
A, I feel like I've genuinely learned something. And B, I've already achieved my goal, which is on these calls to bring you to places you don't go on other calls. That's literally one of my personal private goals. Brilliant.
Well, you have. I've never, ever done that before. And you know what's funny or interesting? I used to feel afraid to show that part of myself in business. I was never afraid to show athletically. That's how I led athletically. It's who I was in high school. It's who I was in the locker room. It's who I was in the field. You know, that I was a vocal, visceral leader on the field. I was much less vocal, visceral, hanging out with my friends, so I was quieter, more introverted, but that's who I am. So, and that's who I was, conditioned, not who I am, who I conditioned myself to be through my childhood on the sports field. And then when I found Tony Robbins' work, he helped me see that that was completely okay to bring out into the professional space. But I had a little inkling of it because when I would study for law school exams and before law school, study for and have law school exams, I would play Thunderstruck and I would do something similar. As I was studying, every time I felt like I was slipping in my attention and focus, I would do that. Never had seen Tony's work before. So when I met his work in the beginning, because I saw it as like dance, like happy, sort of something else, I was repelled the first event I ever went to. I'm like, this is weird. And then as it went along and he hit Zeus moments, I'm like, this isn't weird. It's what I do. Holy cow. And this guy's talking about doing business. He's doing it in front of all these people. And then I hit it. So I would do those things. Everything I just showed you, I would do when I had started my law firm, quit my job. I do push-ups in a bathroom stall before making courtroom appearances, like regularly, all the time. And I would do all sorts of different, self-mastery approaches before I went in, visually, physically. And I hit it. I didn't tell people. And then slowly I began to at least show some people Callagy law, but only people closest to me. Now they all know, like, that's what it is. And at the Unblinded Immersion, that was really the first time I ever did that publicly in front of people. And it was scary for me, but it wasn't new. I mean, that's how I led my high school freshman football team. It's how I led on the playground when I was 12. It's what I said, what I did in the huddle, like, let's go. This is the play we're doing. Like, here we go. And it was just for the first time I ever showed it publicly because I was afraid to do it, to show it for a myriad of reasons. But it's, I believe it to the core of my being. And I mean it, Peter. You're amazing and you're brilliant. And there's a couple of other things that, we could share and talk about that I see as micro distinctions in the formula that would be immensely accelerant for you. But
if you're willing to give me that gift, I'll happily take it.
Yeah. So I will right now.
So do you want to tell people on this side of the camera, because we've got so many lives going on, I don't know where people are now, but do you want to give them the high level view of the formula before we do this?
Sure. Thank you. So just the quick minute of it for everybody that is unfamiliar with me or my work, which is most of the world, and I'm hoping to change that rapidly, but mostly the formula to be what's known much more than me. So I saw people jumping around in rooms. I saw people buying books and going to programs. I also saw lots and lots of people not getting the results that they wanted. I saw a lot of it. So what became present for me was I want to impact that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So Mona very kindly supported me with something. So thank you.
This is a very big.
Yes, a very big glass of water that has my 50 on it, Peter, which I drink regularly. And everybody, thank you. So, so I wanted to solve for that. And I started asking myself, like, it's just too much stuff. How do you have a formula? So I just drilled down, like, there's a whole long story to this. The nutshell of the formula became, and you're like, what is the formula? It's for any outcome you want to create. You want to lose weight, have a better relationship, make money, have better friends, travel more, any outcome you want in your life. And everything I have, I believe this, everything I have, Peter has, everything I have, don't have, everything Peter doesn't have, everything Bruce Springsteen has and doesn't have, and everybody is because of the formula. And I didn't like invent it like, oh my God, there was no success before me. No. Instead, it was like what was always in existence and just how results are produced in a very formulaic, linear way. And so I broke it down to 3 pieces and only 3 pieces. There's process mastery, which is the mapping of what you do. It's your plan, your framework, your map, your plan, your the dynamic of how you're going to get to how you think initially you're going to get to where you go. That alters and varies over time. Okay, so your process. It's really 4 things. It's your modeling. So like who you're going to follow and do. So if I want to get myself into a peak state, I'm going to model somebody like Bruce Springsteen, like Tony Robbins, like Muhammad Ali, because these are people that were able to, in the most critical of circumstances that I've encountered, see them lead people viscerally, energetically, like create emotional transference. So I'm going to model those guys, like model something. I'm going to model sales. I'll model dot, 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 whatever, right? You're going to model boxing. You're going to want to model Muhammad Ali and others, dot, dot, dot. Of course, solving for the challenge, Peter, in modeling that, well, Muhammad Ali may have had unique physical gifts that I don't have. So then should I model him? So that's a whole longer, more complex evaluation, but modeling, right? True modeling. Second is time blocking.
Can I just add something else in there for everyone else?
Yeah, good.
And when we talk about modeling, and Sean, please correct me if I'm misunderstanding this, because it means that I'm not getting it as well. Modeling can be the guy next door, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be the superlatives. If you're saying, wow, my next door neighbor, the way he's charitable to his neighbors, you don't, modeling isn't always, people always talk about modeling in the realm of superstars. I model my children half the time, because my 5-year-old is innocent and ego and amazing. And actually I look at her half the time and go, God, I wish I was more like that.
Yeah, I model my grandmother and my grandfather, and they never made more than $25,000 in a year, because some of you have seen the videos. They have a wall in the beach house that they sacrificed everything to have that house as the epicenter and the heart and soul of our family. And when I walk in there, it's like a museum of our family, a living museum with the pictures and the feelings, and it's remarkable. So yes, modeling everything, and I model my children too. So thank you for that, Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah, time blocking. We're not going to get into the micro detail. This is just in process mastery. Third is maximization through measuring and monitoring. You got to count stuff. So for like just a simple example, the formula would be, our family formula has been my grandmother on down. Here's a model and time blocking. My grandmother on down, we get together for Thanksgiving and Christmas, always, and other things, but definitely those things. My grandmother's siblings on down, we get together for Thanksgiving. And some people do it every other year. But that leads to a family framework, still identifying ourselves as a family for 5 generations. My grandmother's, my mom's, mine, my children's, right? 4 generations. My grandmother's, my mom's, mine, my children. And as soon as they have children, there'll be 5 generations staying together in an almost 100-year-old Thanksgiving tradition for a family that didn't have much money. So that's an example of modeling, because we keep doing it. Time blocking, at least Thanksgiving, right? So even once a year, it's Thanksgiving. So it's not just funerals and weddings, right? Modeling and counting, right? We count every other year if you can make it. So you're still counting. And then innovation, vertically innovating. Every other year came out of some people saying it's too much, travel, So it became every other year, right? So at worst, so that was a vertical innovation. And so that's process mastery. It's how you get to all outcomes. And there's all sorts of sub distinctions. There's, in my mind, 50 hours of content around that. So let's say you do all those things, Peter, and now it's applied to business, and you're not getting the business outcomes you want. It's because there's some challenge, and you're taking action, because we'll get to taking action third. And you're taking actions because you have a challenge in your influence mastery, right? You're somewhere suboptimal. There's 4 steps, 10 indispensable elements, 4 energies, definitely not dropping in there. It's how you go from hello to yes. And when people are not saying yes to you, but they're saying yes a lot more to somebody else, there's reasons for it, and they're discernible. Why Bruce Springsteen became Bruce Springsteen is a discernible formula. Malcolm Gladwell talks about, in some of his work, the luck of things happening, and in Outliers, it's the 10,000 hours and the circumstances that kind of align. I disagree. That's one, I love Malcolm Gladwell's work. I disagree because I think with process mastery, those opportunities are they're born out of the process mastery and then the self-mastery. And I have 1,000 examples for that. So yes, you need the opportunity in the moment, but the opportunities and moments are born out of all the work that goes into the process, right? So it's process mastery, influence mastery. And third, there's self-mastery. And the space of self-mastery is, let's say you have all the influencing skills in the world and you have the most beautiful processes. If you're not following it and taking action consistently, then you're not going to get there. And self-mastery is all the things you do to get yourself to take action. Jumping around, doing all those things, visioning, understanding limiting beliefs, fear, failure, rejection. The entire mechanism, very simple. I'll do it one more time in 30 seconds. Boom, boom, boom. Self-mastery is how you get yourself to act, utilizing your influence mastery, which is your hello to yes, right? And your, with integrity, and your process mastery, which is the mapping and action steps. The biggest dynamic that is most present for me, Peter, for those that are successful, for those that are accelerating and develop a high degree of confidence in their influencing ability, their discipline, self-discipline, and their process mastery. And I have 5 people I could talk about this right now. I won't name names. The biggest challenge for them, and me and you and everybody, comes back to the alignment of process mastery, vertical innovation, and self-mastery, because we fall in love with our habits and patterns. And so it becomes very challenging for us in self-mastery to do new things because we don't like change. We fundamentally don't like change. Like you could say, Peter, I am so spontaneous. I just love to travel everywhere and have fun. Great. Now try to change that and become disciplined and focused and consistent, or vice versa. So we have to vertically innovate. The space of why people don't get there, to me, lies throughout the entire formula, but a very big, like jackpot bonus space to look in is how you're vertically innovating, meaning innovating within the system, right? And how our self-mastery limits us from doing it. Everybody falls in love with their ideas, right? Unblinded, we've innovated 11 times already with the overall goal of delivering the formula to people. The real raw role play was a breakthrough vertical innovation. How do I prove to people? It came from this question. In Corona, how do I prove to people that I'm not full of crap? And how I stop wasting time saying, you know, I really can do this. The vertical innovation was show them. Yeah. I'm like, how do I show them? We'll show them with a person. Well, it took a long time. It was less leverage. Show them with 2 people competing. Oh, and then 3 judges. Oh, wait, we do a real raw open, have 3 judges, 10 people, and do each in an hour. And then we can teach people to do that. All vertical innovations that came over the course of 1 month, time blocking for vertical innovation time and having the self-mastery to fight through it with my co-founders and them to fight through it with me. So I'll pause. That's the
So one of your partners, Jared, said something to me the other day that was painful. And I asked him, and I asked him a question. And I don't want to go into the detail of it, but not because I'm not willing to share it, because I'm not willing to share his side of it without that kind of permission. But I asked him a question about me, and I asked for judgment of me, and I got judgment of me with love. You know, it wasn't nasty at all, but it hurt. And I walked in the house because my office is detached from the house. Luckily, I've got a kind of converted garage. And my wife said, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Kind of." And I kind of repeated, and she went, "Wow, that must have hurt." And I'm like, "Yeah." And she went, "Are you all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a good thing." And she went, "What do you mean?" I went, "Well, pain to me is one of the guiding lights of where I need to focus my energy. Because if someone says something to me and it hurts, it means it's true. Because if you say something to somebody and it's not true, it doesn't hurt. To me, anyway. This is how, if I go, "Oh, ow, I didn't like hearing that," it means there's truth. Mm-hmm. Because if someone says something that I don't care about, someone says, "Pete, you're fat," and we go, "Yeah, I am." What's your point? Yes, I am overweight. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't pain me to hear that. It's true, but it doesn't pain me. So I see pain as a guiding principle to bring me back to where I want to focus my time. And when I look at the three steps of mastery inside the formula, my view is that my process and self are good, and my influence is poor. Relatively poor. But you said you have some distinctions for me, so let's see if they line up.
Yeah. I don't even know if I'd say poor, but I think you're on the right track. Because remember, it's on scale of mastery. So if you are in an 8 at influence, it could lead to some substantial problems. Forgive me, I got a little bit of from my yeah. So so here's the story. I think your biggest challenge is the avoidance of base camp. I call it base camp. So you have, at the very least, a certain minimal structure of financial base camp. So as I've functioned and built my law firm all along, I'm divorced twice, and I was not poor either time that I got divorced. I was poor when I got married the first time, and so my obligations, responsibilities. I didn't litigate anything. I was by every account you can imagine, and you could go find my two ex-wives and you could ask them, is Sean Callagy a generous man? And they would just say 100%, and they would mean it from their heart. So point being, right, it was important to me to have a stable financial base to have money, right, and to provide and keep up with all my agreements, my word. And some of them, by the way, I wish I had agreed very differently, and some of them I feel were unfair to myself. Those are different stories for a different day. But yeah, like there it is. So I made sure I've always built like foundational base camp. I feel that there's a dynamic for people that are trying to, or focused on like hitting massive home runs. And I've never been focused on hitting massive home runs. And I'm not saying you are at all. I'm talking generally to people, and we'll tie it to you in a second. So I've always believed that my desire is to lead a life like my Uncle Jimmy did, which is the ability to do the things I want to do, contribute to the causes I want to contribute to, have something I feel really proud of, and have disposable income to travel whenever I want, however I want, etc. And I don't care if I have a plane. So my financial needs are, met quite nicely. If I'm making, in the multiple seven figures, but it doesn't have to be 8 figures, right? And I am very clear on where I need to be making the money I want to make, to be contributing to the cause I want to contribute with, and to be making sure I have liquidity at a certain place. So I've had focus and discipline around that space, and knowing the value I've had to add to get there. So my hallucination, I don't know you very well in all ways, is you are straight up brilliant. Straight up. One of the smartest people I've ever met. I'm not sure how much you've been focused on building something foundationally, right? To then grow up off of. So my foundation is Callagy Law. The foundation within the foundation was originally medical revenue recovery, because it was a residual business. And that business is still an almost 8-figure a year business, just that subsection of Callagy Law. And so that, and by the way, a lot has changed, Peter, over the years. That business has taken hits big time. And I've stayed 1 or 2 steps ahead of legislative changes, industry changes. I'm doing it again because it's hit by Corona, and there's other things that are happening that are going to mean it's hit in different ways. So, and part of my week is innovating and staying ahead in that space. So my hallucination is that you're yet to perhaps build base camp. And from base camp, all kinds of things can happen. And once we have base camp, for anybody out there, then the question is, how do you replace yourself in base camp with the next person? So medical revenue recovery, that business that exists to this day, was how I bought my first beach house 23 years ago. And I was telling a story 2 days ago. I licked the envelopes. I typed them on a typewriter to get stuff sent out. I did every job function. Now, about, I don't know, 75 people at Callagy Law do all the same jobs that I did and just scaled and divided. And it was bit by bit and little by little, innovation by innovation over time. So I'm hallucinating that your influence mastery could be at play, but I'm going to say it's got to be some process mastery. Remember, there's 4 parts of process mastery. So I'm guessing you may not have modeled what I just said. So there could be a modeling piece off if you want what I want. I don't know what you want, right? But if you want to achieve a base camp to fundamentally have base camp for family economic structure, so then you're more free to do things. Like I'm free to do unblinded and go like a lunatic because everything I need to do financially is covered.
Yeah.
So I haven't needed to take a penny from unblinded. I funded unblinded and I haven't taken a penny. And I don't need to take a penny from unblinded for the rest of my life. Right. So like I'm not doing it as a charity, right? But it's like monetization for me isn't important. So it gives me certain freedoms that matter. So I'll pause. Actually, I'll say this. So I think your agreement formation to get to like process mastery of having target base camp established, right? And I'm guessing, this is my feeling, is your target base camp is have a few clients that you're doing some work with. I don't think that's target base camp because it's too dependent on you. So your target base camp is built around your time and not scaling that foundationally to have something rolling that's not built on your time. So how am I doing so far? And what are your thoughts?
Very good. Totally agree with you. And I realized that I don't like talking Tony Robbins language because I like to make sure we're being inclusive, but this is very, Tony Robbins says there's a moment when you when you actually decide, and when at that moment it's done and it's going to happen no matter what. And I have reached the point pre that of saying, I know I have to turn what I know into a course and into training that can be accessed remotely, bought, etc. Because I absolutely fundamentally know that I can take a business from offline to online profitably in 8 weeks, no matter what level of technical capability somebody has.
I believe that.
And it has an insane amount of value right now, even more than it ever did. But it can't be delivered per hour by me because the people that can afford to buy the course cannot afford the £2,000 a day or $2,000 a day that I would want to charge if they were getting it face to face. So what then that leads to is you then end up in deals and then where perhaps you love the people, perhaps you don't love the people, but you end up in deals that are suboptimal for your finances because you end up making cash flow decisions, which are never the right decisions.
Yeah.
And then you're in a virtuous, whatever the opposite of a virtuous circle is, where you're slave to yourself to carry that thing on.
Yeah, I agree. And so I know we're having great conversations and I think we can have more great conversations, but I'm very confident that Jared, yourself, me, I think there's clear mechanisms or everybody wins. Because in every single deal I've ever been involved in, Peter, base camp achievement for me is that everybody wins. Now, people can have different perspectives on what that means. I get it. But if we're building things where everybody wins, then everybody wins. My biggest, if you didn't ask me, but I feel compelled to offer, my biggest mistake has been making deals that are unfair to myself. And when people don't live up to their end, me carrying it too long. So there's offices for Callagy Law that I invest in and carry out of other profitable divisions that make no sense because I like the person, because I want to see our dream fulfilled, but they're not following the formula. And I'm like, and now that's why Tom Filatico is there as chief accountability officer. And he'll go, what are you doing? Like, why are you investing, $40,000 a month to carry this office? It's crazy. like, or this division, and this division is carrying it. And this division's insane, and you're spending equal amount of time like innovating with both, and this one is going to return 100x in your time, and this one might return 2x. Like, so even for me, that, and that's all process mastery. So, and self mastery, because I like the person, right? So I'm just using that as an example, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I make all kinds of mistakes, and I've made those kind of mistakes, you know, even the last couple of years. But I have, and this is interesting. So thank you for taking me through this, because I'm realizing this. It's where I've set my thermometer. So where I've set my thermometer is, as long as I'm making X, like, I'm all good. And so the reason I'm not making 2x or 10x, and I'm very thankful for where I am, I'm in the fractional 1 percentile, right? Is because my thermometer is not higher, and so this is a breakthrough for me, Peter. I'm going to reset Basecamp to just accountability structures that make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I'll make changes, which is exactly what I coach people up on, and don't do rapidly enough out of my own self-mastery fear that the person will be sad, they'll be mad, they'll try to blame me and say, oh, you're being mean, or you don't care, or, you know, make up some nonsense. So in avoidance of conflict with people I care about, sometimes I keep things stuck too long. So,
but I'm going to say this from a coaching perspective for you, to give something back to you, but I know that it won't land, because it never lands when anyone says it to me. But you also know intellectually that letting that person go on their journey is better for them than holding them in that space,
yeah,
where they haven't been exposed to their own failure and allowed to grow.
yeah. No, thank you. And by the
But
way,
it doesn't land, does it? Intellectually, you're like, yeah, it's true, but like, no, it doesn't. But it is. But it isn't.
yeah, and I'm not going to get into the details, because it might be part of my first or second book, because I'm well into the first book, and I'm hopeful to have that completed before September. And yeah, and but it's not like, you know, sometimes people are like, hey, you can write a book in 8 hours. Like, this is not the write a book in 8 hours. This is like a real book, and I'm not diminishing writing a book in 8 hours. I think it's a great thing to do, but like, this is real. This is like unblinded, like the book. And so in my second marriage, I violated my own principles in remaining and staying no less than 6 times. And each time I did, it brought me even more pain, even more pain. And it eventually led to an agreement that I don't believe in. And because I essentially leveraged myself into it, I was generous in a prenup. I was generous at every stage. And by the way, you can go talk to her and ask her, and she'll say all the same things. And she's apologized to me for it. And, you know, I've forgiven and all those things. And truly, I have. But I'm using it as an incredible life example, because it was one of the greatest pains of my life to sign our settlement agreement and divorce, because I didn't believe in any part of it. And I was so out of integrity. And I did it because the only other alternative would have been to go through years of litigation. And at the time, I didn't think it was worthwhile. But the decision I've made, Peter, is I'm going to go through every single litigation for the rest of my life. If somebody wants to bring litigation to me, and somebody wants to falsely take a position, I'm going to take it to the end. Because, and I'm going to model, again, one of my great mentors, Tony Robbins, because that's what he did. He was falsely accused of something at one point in his life, and he sued for defamation, and he won. And he set a standard with people out there that said, I will not allow you to step to me and lie. And I think as my publicness has risen, which is not my desire, I want to blind it to rise, but for now I'm the face of unblinded in many ways, and eventually I won't be, and hopefully that'll be very soon, and I'll be very happy about that. But in the interim, not like, if people are going to step, and it's very few people, but there's been a little step here, a little step there. I am going to make sure I never do what I did again there. And I mean that for everybody, that, if you, and I'm an attorney, obviously, and we litigate cases, and I always tell people to resolve things efficiently if they can. But I think I have, in dealing with people who've hurt me, wronged me, lied, been deceitful, I have been too easy to say, I could always make more money. I can always do more. I just want to put it behind me and I want to just stay in a positive space. And I think sometimes what that does is it invites other people who see that to think they can step to you and take from you. And so, that is something I have left behind, and I invite all of you to leave behind, is confronting. If you're a good person, it doesn't mean that you don't fight for what's right and fight for yourself. And final thing I'll say on that, Peter, is, there's the second scroll of Og Mandino is, I greet each day with love in my heart and carrying it throughout each day. I now say, I greet each day with love in my heart for all of God's people, including myself, and carry throughout each day. It's okay to love ourselves, and it's okay to receive. And I say that to you, Peter. Like, it's okay for you to love yourself and for you to receive. And I think that's critically important for all of us, but that resonates as a message that was important for you today.
Thank you. Landed. Right, wow. Well, we have, again, as per usual, flown by. It hasn't been as inflammatory as our last two conversations, but I think it's been probably a lot closer to the subject we're supposed to talk about. And actually, I think, hopefully, certainly meaningful for me, and I hope for other people. Sean, today, final thought from you before final from me. Today is the launch of the Unblinded Accelerator. We have Jared on talking a bit about it later on, but what's your 2-minute wrap up for that?
My 2-minute wrap up for that is going to be this. We're going to build a machine with 200 people to start. And you want to be in one of those 200 people. And if you're not smart enough to know it, or I haven't done a great enough job explaining it, then I'm sorry, because you're going to miss. And this thing is going to go like nothing you've ever seen in your life.
Well, you've got anyone watching this, you've got both Sean and I both saying this is something that you should put time in, because it's not, I wouldn't even call it investment, because the payback is going to be phenomenal very quickly from everything I've seen of it. And it's today at 6:30 my time. Is it 1:30 Eastern, I believe?
1:30 Eastern. And if I could say this, Peter, you go, what does that mean? It means that what you want is going to be present. I'm not promising you, I don't know how to build $1 billion company, right? And I don't know that I'm intending on that. But I tell you what I do know how to do is help you live your life like my Uncle Jimmy and mine. The freedom to go on the trips you want, to have the financial stability you want, to give the causes you want, to feel proud of your life's work, and to impact other people's lives. At least that base camp, this will bring you to.
More money, more time, with more magic.
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. And it's unblindedaccelerator.com, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Unblindedaccelerator.com. And it's posted certainly in the Hat Mankind Tribe group. It's on the Hat Mankind page. It's on my business page. It's on my LinkedIn page. So everywhere I could put it, it has been put.
And I'm going to say one interesting curiosity builder. You want to make sure that you're having your draft party, like this fantasy football drafts. You want to have your draft party and you want to get drafted, because you need to get drafted and have your draft party. And that's a new hack on the world of relationship development that I think is a very important one. And it mirrors and follows the work of Simon Sinek, citing anthropological studies about human acceleration and leadership. So that's my final.
Wow, I want to get drafted. I don't even know, but I want to get drafted. Anybody that's listened to this, and if you haven't joined hatmankind.com, you really should. It's a very simple premise that we've put together. If you believe in better for yourself, or you believe in better for humanity, then come on board, join us, and let us help you with that. We are free for life for the first 1,000 members. That will not continue, I'm sure, before the end of next week. And beyond that, we will always be free for life for doctors, nurses, EMTs, teachers, police officers and firefighters, because you are willing to do things that I am not. And myself, my family, and my community thank you profusely, as does Sean, as does everybody at Hat Mankind. Sean, it landed. I need to go and walk my dog and think through some of the things you said. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I hope everyone else got something from this as well. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. See you on the accelerator in a little bit. Peter, thank you, sir.